This morning's Breakfast Bible Bytes narrative continues with part 3, searching for prophetic metaphors from the tabernacle. Prior to leaving the holy place, the high priest would have passed the table of shewbread. The purpose of the golden table was to hold 12 cakes of bread made with fine flour. They were placed there in 2 rows of 6, each loaf representing one of the tribes of Israel. That's in Leviticus 24:8. Each loaf was prophetic of our Christ. They were made from fine flour of the earth. Flour is made finer by repeated pummeling in a stone bowl called a mortar with a pestle. The Lord chose to experience human trial personally, pummeled by minions from the dark domain. The loaves were baked with pictures of his suffering in the furnace of affliction. They were unleavened, made without yeast, which is a metaphor for sin, and our Lord was tempted as we are, yet he did not sin. The loaves were sprinkled with pure frankincense, a fragrance that speaks to the Father of his Son. Just as the table always speaks of our fellowship and communion, so the table of the showbread points to Jesus, who made a covenant built on better promises and provided a blood covenant meal for us to partake, so that we might be all one in the Spirit. We should remember Jesus' words in John 6:35 and verse 51. I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall never hunger, and he who believes in me shall never thirst. Verse 51 reads, I am the living bread which comes down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And the bread that I shall give is my flesh, which I shall give for the life of the world. Entering into the Holy of Holies with Jesus, we discover that the torn veil has been removed, and we can now come directly into the presence of Jehovah. Jesus has prepared a way through the veil. Do you recall Jesus' words in John 14:6, where Jesus told his disciples, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me? The high priest would have sprinkled sacrificial blood on the mercy seat that covered the Ark of the Testimony. But on this side of Pentecost, Christ has already shed all of the blood necessary for our forgiveness and redemption. The mercy seat, of course, speaks of Christ and is made out of solid gold and guarded by 2 cherubim. The ark underneath was made out of acacia wood, which, like our cypress, is from the earth, but is long-lasting and not subject to corruption. Just as our high priest Jesus, who, though tempted by corruption as we are, remained without sin. To make the picture complete, it covered the ark, and the cherubs with outstretched wings were formed in gold, hammered out in a profession of Christ's divinity. Within the ark there were 3 items which confirmed the prophetic picture of Christ. Aaron's rod that budded positioned him as the high priest for the people. The golden jar of manna speaks of God's provision for his people, just as Jesus is God's provision for his spiritual people. That's according to John 6:32 through 35. He says, I assure you, Moses didn't give you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the real bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the one who comes down from heaven and gives his life to the world. Then he said, Sir, give us this bread always. And Jesus said, I am the bread of life, Jesus told them. No one comes to the Father, comes to me, will ever be hungry, and no one who believes in me will ever be thirsty again. The third and final article in the ark was the tablet of law, those principles of God's justice by which he rules the heavens and governs the earth. We call these principles of common law. The 10 Commandments, until recently, were viewed as foundational in our own legal system. We read in Deuteronomy 10:1 through 2. The Lord said to me, that's to Moses, at that time, cut 2 stone tablets like the first ones, and come to me on the mountain and make a wooden ark. I will write on the tablets the words that were on the first tablet you broke, and you are to place them in the ark. We have only rudimentarily scratched the surface of the metaphors found in the tabernacle. If you would like to dig deeper, see my commentary on Breakfast Bible Bytes. That's B-Y-T-E-S, Breakfast Bible Bytes, as one word, .org, and the portraits of Jesus in the tabernacle.